So, hi everybody, and welcome to the latest edition of Moons and Mythos. This is episode number 14 with myself, Davyd Farrell, co-host, and my wonderful astrologer friend and mythologist, Kelley Hunter. Hi, Kelley, how are you doing?
Hello, I'm good. Yeah, I'm really feeling good about this moon cycle.
Good. Well, this particular show, we're going to be looking at the new moon at 22 degrees of Virgo, which is coming up super fast on September the 14th, and the full moon 2 weeks later on September the 29th, which is at 6 degrees of Aries. Now, this is quite a powerful time. We have, of course, in between those new and full moons, we have the Libra equinox, which is an incredibly important point, lots of energy around that. And so I feel that this is another one of those sort of tipping points, Kelley, where the prayers that are made on this new moon in Virgo have a very, very good chance of materializing super quickly with that powerful energy of go that Aries gives us, and that sort of dynamic energy of fire. But where are we going to start today's look at what's coming up in this month's lunar cycle?
I'm just going to pick up on the two things that you said that I think are so important. One is the tipping point that we have for like months now, several months now. Pluto is squaring the nodes of the moon.
Right.
The nodes of the moon are occupied by various characters, kind of working with it. But that is a really significant dynamic that we're in the middle of, and that is like underlying these several moons we have going on. And the other thing is that Pluto is also involved in a grand trine in Earth signs. We have all of the Earth signs occupied. We have Pluto in Capricorn back there for a while. We have Uranus in Taurus. And then whenever something is in Virgo, we have an Earth triangle. So this new moon really is right. That is that Earth triangle. And we have other planets that have been moving through it too. And we have Mercury retrograde for like hours, just a few hours more in Virgo as well. So, and then we'll have Venus going into Virgo. We already had Mars in Virgo. So we're having this ongoing Earth triangle that can get a lot done. This is a lot of on the ground stuff is happening. We won't miss it. It's, it's part of the Earth changes we're going through. And we are going to be seeing those, experiencing those. And so let's respond with the beauty of the Virgo natural cycles. Feel how our bodies are tuning into this like dowsing rods, and let's take actions that are in appropriate response to what is going on in our world, and with nature too. It's quite a time for grounding and listening to our bodies, so that is one of the biggest themes going on. And then and the tipping point as well. And this is like a major collective tipping point. This is like very intense astrology. So these are the two really, important ongoing things. And we could also add in that we have a lot of retrograde planets that are helping us also kind of take stock of what we've been experiencing, how that is going, and kind of review some of that, and then kind of work with it to make it better, to improve it. We also are still coming, or let's say we're unwinding the Venus retrograde, because she's still in Leo and is not back where she started retrograde. So that whole, what I call circle of influence, is still in play. And Mercury and Venus is dynamically activating some of the dynamics that she's already, kind of tuned into. And now we're finishing up the Mercury retrograde basically on this new moon, because within less than 24 hours, Mercury's going forward. And it's like, okay, what did you all get out of that Venus retrograde? How are you feeling? How are you improving your life? And how has that rearranged your priorities? Virgo is a lot about priorities. What's the most important thing to respond to right now? And based on that deep Lilith infused Venus retrograde, we have some different take on things than we did even a couple of months ago.
Right, quite a bit there. So why don't we pull up the chart and have a look at it and talk our
Okay.
audience through how it looks on the chart. So I think everything you said is super important, super relevant, and certainly resonates strongly with myself and hopefully our audience too. And let's start with the energy of Virgo, because I think that that's really important. You know,
Yeah,
so
Virgo is I think Virgo is a very misunderstood sign. You know, the Virgos are considered really fussy and critical and workaholic or all of that, but it's the sign that is most in rhythm with earth energy. And we get stressed out because we are not in rhythm with earth energy and listening to our bodies. You know, Virgo is most tuned in to the body as an instrument of the spirit. And so one of the priorities must be, I want to be feeling good. I want to help my body be able to radiate the emotional light that is wanting to be more fully expressed through this Venus retrograde process. And now that it's, you know, kind of moving forward again, it's like, you know, walk in beauty like the night. But let's do that in the daytime too.
Right, and of course Virgo, like you jokingly said, is sometimes known as being fussy, but it's also known for being precise and getting things done in the right way, or what's perceived to be the right way. So I think, you know, when we put into the mix there what you said about Mercury going forwards on this new moon, and we've also we're going to talk about this in a second, we've got added energies to work with on this new moon. Feels to me like we're being guided to get really, really clear about what we want to communicate and how we're then going to follow through on those communications in terms of actions, which is what the full moon in Aries, I would suggest, is probably going to guide us towards. So I think paying a lot of attention to our connection to the earth, the details around that. I mean, obviously, we're both very much into plants, particularly myself. And so watching the rhythms of nature is really important. When to harvest is really important. We have kind of moved somewhat beyond harvest time, but we are also into a period now when nuts and berries are still available. There's lots of good medicine in the fall. We're also moving into fungi season. So this is about the mycelium, what's in the earth. That's very Ceres, actually, and Ceres we'll probably talk about a little bit too. So it's about...
And flowers. I've got my zinnias. That's my big harvest right now in my garden.
Right. And so this Virgo energy, I think, is just reminding us about where true energy and resources actually can lie. Because, you know, in a world where finances and trading, which is probably going to come up at some point in this too, are becoming a little more complicated. What's really important to us? Well, food is important, water is important, and a roof over our heads. And I guess that, you know, signs like Virgo and Taurus and Cancer are always pointing towards those needs for comfort and security. But with Virgo, it's also about the connection to the earth, right? And how we work with that.
Yes. Well, and Uranus has been in Taurus for a while and all the way along, ever since its transition from 2018 into 2019, I've been saying this is bringing us back to the basics, you know, just like you said, you know, food, water, shelter, and, you know, the uncertainty and the changes going on are never been more obvious than now with all this earth energy, right, you know, that we're experiencing, you know, all around the world.
Right, and so if I'm correct, we're looking at this triangle here, and Uranus is part of that, right? Because it's at 22 degrees.
Yeah.
And so it's
here's the new moon. There's Uranus, very closely trine, very closely, like 1 degree.
1 degree.
Jupiter's there too, of course. It's just gone retrograde, pretty much. And there's Pluto back in Capricorn because it's got some more to finish up before we can move on into the Aquarian era. So yes, all of them are there. And, you know, if Capricorn is the earth that's about structures and forms and mountains and, you know, how the rivers carve their way through the valleys and all of that. Taurus is more the stability of the earth, let's see, Taurus is like a deeply rooted tree,
right,
that can be fruitful and give more shade. So I think trees are very Taurus. And then Virgo is the variety of nature. and it's, ever creative, variety of all kinds of things, and how they all work together, interwoven. So this is, they are all working together here. So we are also recognizing our bodies as of nature, the nature of our bodies, and how we commune with the plants. I think maybe the Mercury retrograde in Virgo, one of its own signs, has also gotten more specific and precise. Maybe we have more information. Maybe our bodies are telling us, okay, it's time to step up. I don't want you to eat this anymore. It's like fine tuning. And Virgo, another one of its meanings is purity. It's a sign of purity.
So let me, I think what we've just shared there is really important. I'd like us to mine it a little bit more if we can, Kelley. So I just want to paraphrase to make sure that I've got this correct, and assist our audience if they're also just putting the pieces together. So we have a grand trine in Earth, which is what we've just been talking about, the sun and moon conjuncting for the new moon, but in aspect to Uranus in Taurus and Pluto. It's a little wide there on 6 degrees, but it's still within the shape. And so we've got Pluto, we've got Pluto, which is the top of the tree in Capricorn, which, as you said, is the top of the mountain. It's where water starts to flow down. So we can say that that's the point of purity in some ways, weirdly. But Virgo is the sign of purity, because, one of the things we've been discovering here in Colombia is that we've been up to the very high mountains here and seen really, really pure water. But then just slightly downstream here in the city, the rivers that are running through the city are completely polluted. And I know that that's a story that's pretty much true in every city, in every country in the world, including London, which has a big river running through the middle of it. That is infamously dirty. And so, interestingly enough, on this point, while we're talking about the purity of water in my home country, I saw again this week in the news that our government is under the spotlight because of the amount of sewage companies who've been allowed to pump raw sewage into our lakes and streams. So water purity is very, very much a part of the big collective picture right now, which I'm sure we're going to see in the astrology too. But so we've got that beautiful top of the mountain energy with Pluto telling us in its own retrograde process to review what's at the top of the mountain and what's coming downstream into the more pure earth, or really not so pure earth that's somewhere down the mountain, because it's already been polluted by, well, it could be any number of things. But we've also got Uranus in Taurus. And as you said, Taurus is deep-rooted trees, but I also like to think that Uranus is that out of the blue solution that can come from somewhere. And again, just going to point to our new friend and contact, Randy Hatton, with his water inventions. Maybe Uranus is going to show other people similar ideas around how to clean the earth. Maybe there is going to be some sort of interesting mycelial products that can help remove plastic, etc., etc. So I think that this is a very exciting grand trine because it offers the possibility of renovation, refurbishment, rejuvenation of the earth, but from the top of the mountain with a more clear vision.
There's Uranus. Earth technologies. We don't need AI. We need Earth technologies.
Earth technologies, I agree.
That would be Uranus and Taurus.
Exactly.
Using our natural resources in ways that are in harmony, with nature's intentions. And this is a big honoring. So this is like, Virgo can be very inventive. If I'm having, kind of trouble with my computer or anything, I want a Virgo. I want maybe somebody born in the 60s with Uranus and Pluto in Virgo. They get really good at that kind of stuff. So how can we rearrange things so the energy supports each other? It's like permaculture. The whole environment is designed to, be in harmony, and every environment is different. So how are we working our particular environments? So the Sabian symbol I like. It's a royal coat of arms enriched with precious stones. So I'm looking at that in relation to Venus being in Leo for so long, which is the sign of royalty, the sign of sovereignty. And so here's Virgo saying, if you're feeling that within yourself and honoring yourself, here I got one of those little tea things, a little message on my tea bag this morning. It says, appreciate yourself and honor your soul. So there we are. The more we can appreciate ourselves, the more we're going to treat our bodies as the temple of our spirit, and we are enriched that way. We are given, preciousness, and to appreciate, and every flower is a precious jewel. It's if we look at it in that poetic way, which is the true way, I think.
That's really, really beautiful. And I'm also just thinking, of course, Virgo is about it's about precision. And so if we've got that possibility of working with the precision of Virgo, but with the mastery of Pluto in Capricorn, which is the maximum we could really give ourselves, I guess. But then also with the Uranus spark of something out of nowhere, that's giving us three really powerful inventing energies that are precise, that are with mastery, but also with spontaneity, maverick qualities, ingenuity, but all connected to Earth, which I think is really, really exciting because as we were talking about off camera, there are different technologies available now. We've talked about this a lot. Some of them are Earth-based and some of them are well-based in other philosophies and ideas that maybe some of us find a little difficult to get on board with. But Earth technology is something that I know we can both get on board with, and I think is really, really important. It may even be a driving factor for some of the new Earth economics to come, where actually we might trade in something that's of value to people rather than make-believe things, right? So I'm super excited by this idea of
and I think the precious stones can also be suggesting that crystals are really useful, using crystal energy and the crystalline, energy that the world is being reshaped into in some way or other, on a really inner level.
So for the first time in a while, I've been guided to pick up stones. One is serpentine for a bunch of really interesting reasons that came up in the Return of the Goddess. And the other one is an asteroid called Columbianite, which you can't really see here, but it's kind of a little bit similar to moldavite in that it's transparent. So I'm carrying these around with me. This one is helping with the extraction I had on my tooth, because it's really good for working with calcium and bones. And this one just feels super far out and off planet, so I like that. But the point is that actually one of the things that recently emerged out of our Return of the Goddess journey on QPH was not just, of course, that we work with plants, that's something we've been doing from the beginning, but now calling in other energies that are more mineral-based or crystal-based or water-based. And I love the idea that precious stones aren't necessarily something that have some sort of monetary value, as in the old ways, but actually have something of a healing value, maybe, that can assist us, or even in a spiritual growth capacity, which is what often moldavite is a very, very powerful stone that, of course, many of our listeners will probably be aware of. I have a couple of pieces, and for sure, when it came into my life, it transformed my life quite quickly. So we know these.
Shungite is another excellent, amazing, energy clearing stone.
So there are lots of really amazing stones, and more being discovered all of the time. And I think that, like the plants, we can tune into those ones that are precious to us, because everybody's energy fields are different. We all respond differently to plants and food in different ways, because we're all wired slightly different. And the same is true about crystals and precious stones. Let's start bringing the precious stones into the mix, because I love that idea.
Yeah,
so
it's time to get your medicine bundle and put special things in your medicine bundle.
Right, and this is where that sense of coherency comes in. If we're putting things into our medicine bundle that are coherent with us, rather than being something that just looks kind of cool that we want to show off for some reason, then we can start to have this almost coherent, very Virgo-like precision medicine bundle that is entirely tailored towards us, which is super cool. Again, we're coming to this idea of this nature's pharmacy, the medicine cabinet that is 100% geared towards us, because it's a free health service that speaks to our bodies, and whether it's with crystals or plants or trees, they speak to us at an individual level. So I think that that's totally mind-blowing. We've talked about it a lot recently, but it is a tailored healthcare service coming from Mother Earth that speaks to each
and that's beautiful. That's the Virgo. That's Virgo. That's a basic meaning of Virgo. And again, Mercury is just turning forward. So it's zeroed in here at 8 degrees, and it loves the pharmacy of Mother Nature. A good time to be learning about that. And we have Mercury in Virgo for, I don't know, a bit longer here. It doesn't go into Libra until the end of the first week in October. And then it's also opposite Saturn. They're both retrograde, opposite each other. They're both zeroed in, and so there's the water and the energy, the vibrational energy that we're learning to use and get more precise about in this moon cycle. So
Yeah, I
this
think
is
that's also
that.
really interesting. Yeah, the whole piece around
Yeah.
water is really interesting. And of course, we do have more retrogrades, which we'll talk about in a minute. But so Saturn is now retrograding back through the sign of Pisces. And of course, we've talked a lot about Saturn and structure of water, Pisces, sort of almost unstructured water or expanse mutable water. So how do we understand Saturn retrograding back? It's almost like a boat reversing and creating a swell or something that's in the opposite direction. So how do we read that energetically?
Well, you know, this is our job right now. Saturn's like, okay, here's what you're working on right now. And we got so far, and that's it for now. We need to consolidate what we've learned because things have been moving so fast. We might have missed something, So Saturn is like, all right, really feel this out. It's retrograde. It gets all the way back to 0. And it turns forward the first week in November at 0. So we've got, another month and a half or so, something like that. And this is like learning to really shape our energy, use our energy, clarify our energy, use the Virgo to filter out, what we can use and what we can't use. And also picking up on the vibe, not ignoring things. This is like, what is the energy here? Are you tuning in? And as precisely right now as we can tune in, and also use just discernment about what we're taking on energetically and what not. Like certain things, I'm not going there. That's it. I'm not going there. Energetically, I'm not allowing that energy in. And so that's the piece of work right now. Now, this new moon, I want to introduce one of the Kuiper Belt objects, or we can call them the trans-Neptunians, because it is so closely opposite the new moon. The new moon's at almost 22, and this is Teharonhia. Teharonhia is an Iroquois creator god. And I live in that part of the world. I live in the Iroquois area in the Northeast US and goes into Canada. And so this is a story that comes from kind of where I live. And so I really tune into it. Plus I had Teharonhia conjunct my, let's see, what is it? I think it's conjunct my Mercury by birth. So got to talk about it. Anyway, so Teharonhia, and I heard the pronunciation from a man of the Iroquois nation. So Teharonhia. And Teharonhia, here I have a slide. Let me share this with you. Teharonhia is descended from the star people. And his mother was was living in the world before this one, in the sky people. And so what happened was the world tree got uprooted, and her husband, the turtle man, threw down a lot of things through that hole, including her. And she was caught by the birds and placed carefully and gently on Turtle Island. And so she was pregnant. Somehow her mother was there. It's a very complex story, and I haven't even read the whole thing yet. It's given in this book, the Rautinanshani, which is about the Iroquois people, and its subtitle is A Traditional Iroquoian History Through the Eyes of Teharonhia and Sawiskara. Sawiskara being, this is one of the longhouses these people lived in, or met in. And Sawiskara was Teharonhia's evil twin. And he was tired of being in the mother's womb. So he had this like icicle, which is his thing. And he split her body open and pushed his way out of, I believe it was her armpit or something. not the womb. And so it killed her. And also Wako came out. So he is like the evil twin who was always jealous of Wako, because Wako could see the codes in the ether of what was supposed to be created on this earth. And he started creating everything. And so Whiskerwood would try to do that, and he would make, instead of a bird singing in the sky, he would make a bat, or he would make something ugly and thorny. Not to say all thorns are bad, but anyway, he was always the evil, trying to undermine. He was jealous and deceitful, and always trying to undermine Wako, who had a great compassion and was trying to like appreciate him, and but he was undermining everything. So this is like the theme of good and evil, and how we are working with that polarity in the world. And it's pretty strong right now on this moon that we're confronting. And this goes back to the turning point and the choice point that we're at right now. Are we buying into Sawiskara's deceitfulness, or are we tuning into the higher vibrational energy of this creator God that breathed his spirit into humans and gives us that capacity to recognize that we too are descended from the star people. So
Right.
there's
we are
many
the
themes
ancestors that
about
we've been
this.
waiting for, right? That's when we start to understand that we are avatars in different vehicles, bodies, and that we are projecting our consciousness across multiple timelines, and then we realize that we are the ancestors from the past, reincarnated, you could say, or just on a different timeline, because past, present, and future are all one. But I think that this is a really important energy to be considering right now, because yes, this is a time to plant seeds. This whole new moon, I think, in Virgo, and with everything we just looked at, is very much about planting seeds. And for sure, sometimes you plant seeds and they grow well, and sometimes they don't. And sometimes you plant seeds and then something else grows, and it could be a thistle or a thorny plant. But as we learned with the Quest of the Quantum Heart, there are many plants like rose and hawthorn that are heart medicines. The San Pedro cactus, or the Wachuma, is also another one, and they all have spikes. Why? Because the heart needs some protecting. So I think that this is a very good exercise for all of us in understanding what is duality, and that light and dark, good and evil, although I'm less keen on those phrases personally, but light and dark and good, or pretty and ugly, we could say, maybe, is another way of looking at it. They're just two sides of the same coin in duality. And that this time that we are in, we are absolutely #forced evolution, being forced to look at these two different sides of everything, so that we can come to a non-dual eagle's perch perspective. And the reason that's really important is because it means that we don't get so emotionally triggered by the things that we find repulsive. As a good Buddhist student, we learn that there are only two forms of suffering in life, and they are caused by attachments and aversions. I meditated on this for a very, very long time, extensively, and I found it to be true, that everything that in my life was causing me some level of suffering was down to one of those two aspects. I was either averse to it or I was attached to it. So if we can let go of our aversions and attachments to things that cause us suffering, this energy can help us with this, because we can understand that in that space of clarity, we can put new seeds that are free of those kinds of emotional attachments and aversions. So I love this. I think it's brilliant.
Yes.
Energy to work with.
When some of the creations of Sawiskara started like doing harm to the creatures that Wako created, he decided, okay, look, he can have that area. I'm going to put some water in between us, and I'm going to stay over here. So it's kind of like the Saturn in Pisces. Do I want that kind of energy in my space? And if not, I'm going to step back. We're going to be here. We're going to do this. And also, what was the other thing I was coming up with from what you were saying? It's such a beautiful energy. So the story takes the elders 3 days to tell the story. The whole story is very complex. I'm still working through it. Like if I told you that Wako took his mother's head and put it in the sky as the moon, you're missing a lot of the backstory there. So the thing is that, so that's one story. And later on, after the Iroquois Confederacy, that has 5 or 6 different nations, and they had made an agreement not to fight among themselves, and then that started happening for various reasons. And so there's the story of the peacemaker, who I kind of think of as Wako reincarnated, who came into the world and walked the lands and talked to all the peoples and brought them back into harmony. So I love the Wako coming back as the peacemaker. I think that is also an energy that we need to be bringing now.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I'm just also looking at some of the wonderful words you've got on the side of this image, and just
this is just a first take on things. I'm trying to be very careful not to make things up that aren't related to the culture. These creator gods come from a culture, and there was an astronomer from the Iroquois nation. I told him that one of the new Kuiper Belt objects had been named for Wako, and he said nobody asked us.
I've heard that before,
and I thought that really stopped me for a moment.
Right. I think this what you're alluding to here, actually, in your own investigation into this, Kelley, is the need for integrity and authenticity, but also precision, which is the Virgo energy. So if we are going to tap into other cultures and traditions, memories, ancestral memories, we need to be careful of appropriation, that we don't bend those cultural stories into something that fits our own narrative. And I think that that's something very, very prevalent in our society, that there is a lot of narrative bending going on, particularly through the hallucination box, and that we should be careful of all of this, and that we should be careful that we don't fall into that trap of doing it ourselves, but also that we don't absorb it from other people.
Yes, there's the evil brother trying to twist the perfect creations into something else. So yes, I think
and this is the beautiful thing about this. This is duality, everybody. And so we have to have those two sides. We have to have Sawiskara doing his other work that somehow balances the beautiful work. Because if we just lived in a world full of those beautiful energies, we wouldn't really actually evolve too much. And that is why we agreed to come down here into the dense realities of 3D and also our sort of more 4D emotional body, so that we can remember what it's like to be in our 5th, 6th, 7th dimensional consciousness, but for the first time do it consciously from a much denser space, i.e. our physical bodies. And in order to be able to navigate this world well and to be a multidimensional, even just 5D being consciously aware in our 3D, we have to be able to observe all of these narratives playing out and not get swayed left or right into aversions or attachments or this or that. He's right, she's wrong, blah, blah, blah. It's all just part of the story. And that is where we are all ascending and heading to. And we're not going anywhere, by the way, everybody. We're going to be doing that right here inside of our incredible bodies, which is probably the most futuristic technology that any of us can have access to right now, because it's a new
take care now.
It's all of those things, right? It's also a gateway to
this new moon.
Right.
This new moon is about working with your technology, and Wako is really close to Neptune. They've already been conjunct. So there's Neptune is similar in certain ways. The compassion of Neptune, but we can forgive others, for deceiving us or all of that, but that doesn't mean we need to still live with them, kind of sort of thing.
So let's just quickly, before we move on to the full moon, there are a few other things I just want to highlight in this. So we're looking at the water aspects, and we talked about Earth to begin with, and now looking at what's going on in the water elements of Pisces. I think it's really interesting that Saturn will go forwards in Scorpio season, which of course is fixed water and can be quite intense sometimes. So I think that that's an interesting time for that energy in water to change and then to go forward. So it's like we've been given this little bit of a review process. What have we learned about our own waters? What are we learning about the waters of the planet? Well, I think the thing that's come through very clearly for many of us is that the waters are not clean. And if we want to really go,
and we are water. We're
we are
so
water, exactly.
water. We're salt water. We are the ocean.
Exactly. And
So,
what happens if that water inside of us is not clean? Then it's going to be difficult for us to stand in our integrity, authenticity, alignment, all of those things, because the stuff that's misaligning us. So I really feel that Saturn in Pisces is asking us to look internally. With Virgo's level of precision also for a detox. Are we making sure that our waters are clean and clear so that we can be like the precious stones, like the crystals? Because crystal technology and water technology is pretty much the same. It can receive and harness and hold information. So I feel that we can also be like a glorious quantum hard drive holding all of this information in our internal waters. So I think that that's how we can start to work with this earth technology, but with water. So let's just quickly, for a couple of minutes, if we may, Kelley, talk a little bit more about Neptune retrograding through Pisces. Is there anything else you can say about that at this time?
It's waves. It's in waves,
right.
and this is the tuning into the subtle, and really tuning into that. Especially when we get into Scorpio season, it's a lot about trusting your feelings. And it's also, we've got a lot of spiritual work here, especially the closer Saturn gets to Neptune, the more spiritual work, we're fine-tuning. And that is so important. Neptune's already starting to go into Aries almost next year, but not really quite until 2025. But that's coming right around the corner. So this is a great time, this whole new moon cycle, to really be filtering, fine-tuning, doing spiritual work, grounding. Don't know, have some fun and enjoy what you're doing. Put your heart into it. And that's where we go back to Venus. We go back to Venus. She is squaring Jupiter. They have been both. Venus turned forward when Jupiter turned retrograde. So they were holding in at these same degrees and extending this square for quite a bit. And it goes on for another week or so. So Venus is squaring Jupiter. They're the two most brightest planets in the sky. And squares are not bad. They activate each other. So let's find the best of this activation in being really practical, and also putting our heart into whatever it is we do, because it's going to be more effective and more long lasting. Taurus wants long lasting. And Jupiter says, yes, love, Venus, wisdom, Jupiter. This is what's going to bring us long lasting results that we can live with, not some of the, short term fixes. We need to really get down to it and make some major changes that are going to benefit us in the long run. And I do think, and that includes in the financial realm. It includes in what seeds we're planting, what we're harvesting, what we're eating. It includes using all the technologies that benefit us rather than undermining us. And we need to not listen to that deceptive, this is the easy way, people, kind of things going on, because that whiskerer energy is around, looking to trick us.
I think that's a really important point. And without regurgitating our off-screen conversation earlier, I think that we need to be aware of new technologies being offered to us, new solutions that seem to make our life easier, but might actually draw us into a world that sometime down the road we wish we hadn't got into. So we can all understand that in whatever ways we want, but I think that we should be very, very discerning, I think that is the best word, about what is being offered, particularly maybe in terms of new financial systems or new technologies that look great, but maybe like electric cars being touted as a new way of being eco-friendly, when they actually use just as much coal to power the electricity behind them as oil does.
Yeah.
So, et cetera, et cetera. We can be goaded and guided into all kinds of beliefs that are simply not true just because we've seen it on the television screen somewhere. So I would just want to put that in as a fillip. But also, I think before we move on to the full moon, I'd just like to draw attention to a couple of things. The 29 degrees of Libra is a space where we find Ceres and Haumea, which is more of this energy, more of the earth energy, more of the fertility, more of the seeds, and they're all hovering in that final degree before they enter Scorpio, which I guess is probably going to come up for both of them reasonably soon.
Yeah, Haumea goes into Scorpio October 1st for Haumea, and then she stays. And Ceres moves more quickly, so she's going to go into Scorpio any day now.
Right.
And yes, and the South Node. So this is what we need to be in harmony with. These energies, both kind of growing and fertile and bringing forward kind of energy.
Yeah.
Yeah, and this is part of that squaring the nodes business, with some points that are helping us define exactly what it is that we want to kind of take in, but also how we are choosing what we are taking in, because the South Node is what's ready to come in. It's an opportunity, but we don't, it's also about, we can't stay there. We've got to take it to a new place. We've got to be in a partnership where we are also standing in our center. We need to be in harmony without losing our integrity. So this is moving us forward. What we need to choose things that are moving us forward, not backtracking too much.
And so I think I've asked you this before, but I can never remember what is the sign that's conjunct the North Node, the sort of anchor. Kelley, please do share with us.
This is Aries Sept. I like what Heather Ensworth uses the name. Yeah, so Aries Sept is most people are calling it Eris, and that's what it was officially named. But before it got its official name as the goddess of discord, because the astronomers were all bent out of shape around that time, around is Pluto a planet or not, so they gave it the name Eris. But before that, they had nicknamed it Xena. And that underlie of Xena, the warrior, princess, healer, she is a great example of woman warrior, healer, and queen. So this is a beautiful, strong, energy of the feminine. And that Eris is like standing up for that. She's like, here's who I am. This is what I'm about. And so this is the Aries pull of the way the collective consciousness is developing in a positive way. This is what we're called to. We each, use that Venus in Leo sovereignty we've been gaining and take it to really, craft our world. What do I want to be living? And in my integrity, I'm not going to compromise that, because that'll undermine everything. We'll get out of balance and things will get all messy again. So,
well, and it's also interesting. Now I know why I asked you this, because maybe some of our audience is aware, and without going too much into too many rabbit holes, a recent strain, shall we say, was announced with the name of Aries. And if anyone's been
I know that was a bad choice on their part. If they wanted to, we just need to bring that Xena part forward and stay in our integrity.
Exactly, and I think that's the point. But what's also interesting is we can understand, if we can decode how these things happen, we can also see that maybe that cunning plan, however you want to put it, was put because it's on the North Node, which is where we're all heading to, and maybe that's their piece of their magic. It's just like, we're going to call it that because it's already on the North Node, and that's where we want you to head to. Meanwhile, those of us who know what Aries is really about, because it's been posted online as being the goddess of discord, and so that's playing into a whole kind of fear narrative and That's not true. This is a different energy. So again, we've got two options. Which one do we believe? Do we believe a narrative that we might find on the internet, or do we find a narrative that maybe is coming through the astrology that we can feel intuitively ourselves?
Every planet has its downside and its positive side. And when we understand that, we get a choice. We could take that Venus square Jupiter and be very self-indulgent. And then we'll use everything up and we won't have, so that sort of thing. So then we also have Chiron in Aries, and it's moving toward this energy. It's moving, the North Node and Chiron are going to join up. I haven't really figured out quite when yet, but it's certainly soon. And we also have in Leo here, so Venus is still dancing in Leo, and there is Black Moon Lilith, and we are having a Lilith flashpoint that we've been talking about, Davyd, tomorrow before the new moon. So on Eastern time, the new moon's at 9:40 p.m. and the Lilith flashpoint, you know, we just tweaked everything enough to find it. It's at 11:40 a.m. Eastern time. And these only last a couple of minutes, these Lilith flashpoints, when the two, you know, we have the true black moon at 29, the mean black moon at 27, and they're past alignment here. But earlier in the day, that alignment was exact. And this is like, sometimes there's a long, like kind of frequency wave like that between the two Lilith points. And the closer they get, the frequencies have to go more vertical. And then when they align, it's like a gong, it's like a flash, it's like some kind of energy really has like a crystal clear beam that comes down, and there it is. Right. So I have a little audio on my Substack, Star Lady Substack, that is about this. I talk about this Lilith flashpoint for about 20 minutes. So if you look on there, you'll find it. And you can get there from my website, heliastar.com. So
definitely recommend checking out. But I think that's a really beautiful way to kind of come. We've spent a lot of time looking at the new moon, but I think it's always important because it's about the intention setting. And these black moon Lilith flashpoints sets it up. Right, exactly. It sets it up, and it gives us all food to think about so that we can get really clear, really Virgo in our prayers tomorrow. But also we've got this wonderful astrological, cosmological email service that we can use, which is to pop things into these alignment points as kind of intentions for manifestation. So I think it's a really powerful day tomorrow. I also think it's super interesting that this Black Moon Lilith is in aspect to so many different things, actually. But also before we
look at
go on, Kelley.
What were you gonna? I was gonna bring up the Sabian symbol.
That was exactly where I was going to go. But before we move on to the full moon, let's have a look at the Sabian symbol. Pull that.
I know. This is the Lilith flashpoint symbol at 28 Leo. Many little birds chirping on the limbs of a large tree. And I love that because we've had those chickens, you know, all flapping around. And now we have little birds chirping on the limbs of a large tree. This is a lot of information coming out. This is like a lot of information being shared. This is, you know, let's get together and sing, you know, kind of energy. I love that. I think this is just gorgeous.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? It's like a gathering of nature beings all together for a powwow, we could say, a little bird powwow in the limbs of a large tree, all communicating their ideas. And I love the fact that when you listen, as I do in the morning, because it often wakes me up to the dawn chorus, it's, you know, and the same thing happens in the evening. They're tuning the codes around us. The birds are literally retuning the air elementals and the etheric codes around us. And nightingales do this beautifully. If you've ever listened to the song of the nightingales, it's so clear that they are tuning into cosmological frequencies and sounds. To listen to them is like listening to the universe singing to you. And I always think that in the morning the birds wake up and they do their work, they talk to each other, they retune things, and in the evening they have a look and say, okay,
they open the leaves.
They open
some of the nature like responds to the bird calls. The bird, you know, it's like liquid light. It's like light language that the birds sing.
It is exactly like that. And if you've never done an overnight vision quest or got up in the morning, I've done this before a few times, and sat in the dark and then had the dawn chorus erupt around you. It's really quite the thing. It's hard to describe until you've experienced it, but I would definitely recommend everybody to try and do that at least once in their life, to be in a forest and hear the dawn chorus as it wakes up, because it only lasts for about 5-10 minutes normally, to have all of the birds, but it's like they sing in unison in one. It's quite remarkable. It's nature at its magical best, I think. So I love that. As the
Conference of the Birds, isn't that a famous spiritual story, the Conference of the Birds? And they all come into this huge tree, and they all, I don't know what they do, but it's a classic.
It isn't. I think it should be. I think that's a really wonderful title for a book. I've never heard of it personally, but I think that sounds like a great title for a great book. So the Conference of the Birds. So with all of this information that we have been gathering and the birds have been communicating to each other, how do we see that all unfolding 2 weeks later on the full moon in Aries? Let's pull it up and have a look, shall we?
Well, let's track this. So on the new moon, we have Venus trining Jupiter. On the full moon, we have Venus trining Uranus, exactly, like same degree. And it's very close to the true the mean black moon. So anyway, that's there's been some change. There is some change here in this, you know, the larger financial picture that is the global thing going on. We know that. We have seen, like, you know, different economic conferences going on and liaisons and new partnerships and trade. So this forwards that. There's even more on the full moon here.
Okay.
But let's go to the full moon and look at, there's the full moon at 6 degrees Libra. 6 degrees Aries opposite the sun at 6 degrees Libra. And I always think of them as a polarity. You can't have a full moon without the sun. And so it's highlighting the polarity. And that's why I always, you know, talk about this as the, you know, Aries Libra full moon, you know, because it engages those two signs and is suggesting, again, the choice point that we're facing. And delightfully, we have the Salacia, the mermaid who makes the sunlight to sparkle on the sea, conjunct the moon in Aries. So that is a really nice kind of flavor to know that's part of this moon and will be there on the moon. So what are the sparkles? What is the shining? You know, this suggests to me that there's more of the plasma light coming in. You know, that's part of the, you know, that's part of the holding we're in right now with this energy coming in. So, and we're grounding it and we're choosing maybe what it is that we're going to ground and plant and, you know, move forward with. What is your trail? You've got to find your own trail. Aries is like blazing a new trail. It's inventive. It takes the initiative. It's the, you know, it's the scout that goes before the wagon train kind of thing. So where are you heading? And it's got to be the path with the most light for you.
Right. And so what's, as you're saying all of that, what's coming to me, Kelley, is that if we look back to the new moon, we were talking about these new technologies, Earth technology. Well, we don't just mean literally from the Earth, but technologies here on Earth, quantum planetary Earth technologies. And part of that is definitely plasma. And, you know, we can work with these kinds of new technologies on the new moon so that by the time we get 2 weeks down the road, we can see how they're manifesting as the sparkles. Are we working with quantum plasma technology? And if so, how is it manifesting for us? I think that this is a challenge we can set ourselves. Are we ready to receive and embrace the new quantum technologies available to us and use things in a different way? Or are we still going back to the old paradigm, attaching ourselves to the matrix structure and all that goes with that, because it's what we know and it's what offers a seeming sort of security? Or are we going to be more Uranus about this and say, you know what, I'm going to do something completely different and I'm going to try this one for myself and see how does it work? Because at a quantum level, once we have that quantum understanding down, we understand that actually the matrix is a very pale comparison to what we can create ourselves. But it's a journey to get to that place. And it's a journey that's filled with fear for most people because it means having to jump at some point with no sense of security. That is what 5D consciousness is. That is what the goddess actually asks of us, is that, are you ready to be completely—
well, there we are.
Or
yes,
are you still setting up control mechanisms that allow you to feel like you're jumping, but you still have a reserve plan? Because if you still have a reserve
are
plan—
you asking other people what you should do? You know, you may be letting other people make your choices for you because you're afraid, not sure of yourself. We need that self-confidence and that appreciate yourself and honor your soul. So the soul heart connection is really a huge thing. And I've just become aware of some ancient Vedic teachings from like 1,000 or more years ago that have been conveyed and like reopened as like spiritual technologies.
Wow,
That use mantras to vibrate the energy, just like, you know, the plasma. And part of these teachings have to do with using mantras that charge up your connection and engagement with the 5 elements: earth, air, fire, water, and what they call sky, which is ether. So we have an opportunity here to tune in more directly to the elements and cooperate and create with them. And these have amazing potential, these spiritual technologies from the ancient Vedic rishis.
I mean, that's super interesting for lots of reasons. I mean, yeah, in Buddhism, we would call those termas or spiritual teachings that are found by certain types of Buddhist lamas. And we were just talking with a brother here, actually, a spiritual brother in Colombia, who rather than say the 5th element was ether, he called his 5th element time, which I thought was also really interesting. He works a lot with the medicine wheel of the elements, as do we. And yeah, I mean, for me, the 5th element is ether. That's the place of creativity. But I could also see that we could call it time as well. So I kind of thought that was interesting. I never thought of it in that context, because time is art, time is creativity, and time is what you make of it. So we could also say that ether is another form of time, or time is another form of ether. So I just want to...
Would you call it time or time space? Could you call it time space? I could get into that.
You could call it time space. I mean, we're rapidly, I think, the more that we work with plants like dandelion and other plants and quantum technology, we really are being forced to let go of our belief systems around what we believe is time, what we believe is the history, what we believe is the future. And, you know, the more that we come into the present moment, the more that we can expand the present moment so that we see everything as one continuous unfolding of the same moment, rather than being punctuated by years, which is a different way of living. And this is something that both me and Bella have been doing more and more, and you'll know this too, is working with the mind dream spells, the 13-day cycles. Because once you get into living like that, you start to live very, very differently, because every day, every moment has significance and importance. And rather than doing what a lot of Westerners do, which is mark time, hey, when it gets to the weekend, I'm going to go out on Friday, I'm going to do this on Saturday, I'm going to go back to work on Monday. So the rest
schedule, of it's an unnatural rhythm. Like, let's get rid of daylight time. Like, that is so unnatural.
Right, and
you know, so Jupiter is the planet of,
so
Jupiter is the planet of belief systems. And in Taurus, this means some of our belief systems are a little stuck in the mud. As Jupiter moves toward Uranus and they conjunct next April, that's going to be a lot, you know, earthquake to belief systems. Already that's happening. But also on a high side, you know, Jupiter in Taurus is like indigenous peoples. They connect to the earth, and then, you know, the spirit. It's all one to them. So it's the believing in the wisdom of the earth, which is nature. It's like, it's the goddess, it's the body of the goddess, it's the mirror to who we are truly. So this is like that kind of, it's not a theoretical belief system, it's tangible. We experience, we feel it, we vibrate with this energy. So what energy are you vibrating with? Because those vibration frequencies are like ramping up here.
Right, so it makes me think of the old sort of adage or saying that humans are evolving to become like the trees. And when I think about that, that's, you know, I always bring the oak into my awareness. The oak is, for me, one of the most realized beings. He's got it all sorted. His roots deep down into the earth, his trunk nice and solid in the middle world, or the, you know, the 3D world, and then his branches extending high up as a receiver to the cosmos. So able to receive cosmic impulses, harness them in his trunk, where he also is so, that's why the oak is a king, because he's a sovereign being who in himself is enough. And not only is he enough, he's enough to house other people to live in his space with him and still not require anything in return. This is the mark of a true king. And I think that this is, on some level, what we are all wanting to invoke inside of ourselves, is to become like the oak and to be solid and strong and be there for other beings, but be enough in ourselves. but also to be connected to Mother Earth, because sometimes in the recent years, or generally, I think in the spiritual space, there is a tendency to want to bypass, to go to a certain vibration that is a perception of, I want to be there, I want to be in the love and the bliss and the roses and the chocolates, and I don't want to deal with everyday stuff because that's kind of sucky and doesn't feel good, and I feel rah about myself. That's not the name of the game. The name is to bring everything into balance, right?
And we've been manipulated that way.
Exactly.
So here we have, Jupiter in Taurus, and the Earth trine is now being made by Mercury, still in its own sign, still in Virgo, and that's part of the Earth trine now. So we still have the Earth trine and the groundedness and a practical application, and then we have Mars now in Libra on the South Node. So this is, again, an activation of this choice point. We still have Pluto squaring the nodes, and Mars is getting in here now. So what are you doing? And who are you doing it with? And are you being in your integrity in Aries? We still have Erisina here. I just didn't put them in this time. And this is actually, this full moon is like 2 days before Haumea goes into Scorpio. So it's a farewell to Haumea in Scorpio, because that's turning now. And so again, this is like another choice point with Mars in Libra, and we need to be in our integrity here. Chiron has been square the Venus when it was retrograde, and now that it's forward, there's so much emotional healing if we are brave enough to go there. If we are listening to ourselves, if we can listen to our heart and how it's connected to the soul, and that the most essential aspect of our life force is our soul.
Wow. So you just said quite a bit there. I'm just rapidly writing notes. So as often is the case on a full moon, there is a point of illumination. And what made me chuckle was just looking at some of what's in the news. Who have you been hanging out with, and who have you been doing stuff with? Well, I think that's a big question for a lot of political leaders right now, not least of all those in North America, because it's very much in the news about who they've been hanging out with and what they've been up to with those characters. So I'm wondering whether we're also looking at some possible disclosure as movements are made.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We can look back to the new moon chart to see that, Saturn opposite that Mercury. It's like, what has happened already, what has been going on is going to come out. And it's like, here's part of the challenge. What do we do with this information? What do we do now? And we still have, Venus squaring Uranus. This could be one of the solutions if we're making the right choice. This is the new
piece. Right, exactly. About the Taurus. Are we stuck in our belief systems about people, about structures, about government, maybe about authority? Do we need to, there's
about everything.
About everything.
Uranus is going to blast it all open. Right. This is the Tower card plus. This is, that conjunction next April is like a wow. It's one of the biggest things next year, and we're already tuning into it. We're already, kind of seeing how things are changing. But when we get to next April and that Uranus-Jupiter conjunction, that's going to be a wow.
Right.
But we're preparing now. This moon cycle is a very significant point in that, because we still have Venus and Leo. We're still like communing with our hearts, and, we need to be happy. We've got some good fire here. It's like, you need to be happy. Don't compromise your joy in life out of obligation. Let's find a win-win. This is like, find a way, to really be more happy in your life. This is your responsibility now.
Right.
This is, don't let anybody bring you down,
You said two really important words there, Kelley, which I just want to allude to: responsibility and obligations. So we shouldn't feel obligated to anybody else, really, to do stuff, but we should take responsibility for how we feel and finding the joy in our life, I would suggest is probably one of the biggest responsibilities we have. And rather than hand that over to somebody else, you're going to make me feel better, either health-wise, emotional-wise, spiritual-wise. We can see that in the last 3 years that philosophy has not worked out that well. And I suspect there's more to come about all of that, maybe even some of the disclosures we're talking about. And so if we have belief systems that are anchored in truths that have been given to us, rather than ones that we know from experience, we might start to find some of those truths unraveling around us, and we could find ourselves all at sea with Saturn and Pisces, but without our structures settled. So I would suggest that maybe this is a good time to start being prepared, if you're not already, for the dissolution of some truths that you've held to be true for a long time may not be quite the way that you think that they are, and certain individuals may not be quite who you think they are, whether on the global stage.
And that will be, for some of us, that will be fine. That's like, you'll say, I always knew that. You know, I always knew she was a witch, or, you know, something like this. But your joy, to bring joy into the world. What the world needs now is love, you know, and joy, and you're radiant when you're really living that and loving yourself, you know, and appreciating yourself. You deserve all the best. And this is, you know, we are a healing beacon when we walk through life like that. We bring people, we uplift others. Isn't that a beautiful gift?
It really is, and we should radiate that energy out as much as we can. But I was just chuckling about laughing at some of the things or people that we may have had opinions about in the past. And anyone who saw a recent interview on X with Tucker Carlson will probably be chuckling about what was revealed in that. I'm not going to mention names, but anyone who's seen that interview will know exactly what I'm talking about, because it was pretty funny, I have to say, if we can step outside of holding on to too many truths about the individuals talked about in that particular video. So this is love and laughter, right?
Attachment get in the way. Yeah.
So I just want
to
come
here's
back
that full moon, also the sparkly energy of that full moon, you know, and it'll get a little messy. Mercury's opposite Neptune. We are going to have more exposures, but let's keep our vibe up high, you know. Let's see who really is coming from the heart.
We don't have to get pulled into things, and as we talked about before we got on this recording, there are many challenging things, I think, coming to us all, but we don't necessarily have to get immersed in them. We can see them coming, and we can be like the river. We can flow through it, and if we're facing the right way downstream, we can see the things coming towards us, and we can be very Tai Chi and Eastern about this, and just flow and avoid the big logs floating towards us in the river, and just kind of sail past them somehow. You know,
I got so tangled up with a person the other day. It was like, oh gee, you know, and it was me. I got tangled up. I wasn't being clear with myself. And so, you know, and then it's like, okay, I don't even, like in another situations, I don't even want to think about that. You know, that's just a distraction. I don't even want to think about that. You know, let me get back to that heart energy. What I'm enjoying doing right now, even if it's, you know, daily chores. Even daily chores can bring great joy when you're doing the dishes and looking out the window and seeing, you know, bird or the chipmunk or whatever, you know, the small things. And that's Virgo too. The small things can hold so much joy.
As long as we are present in every moment, even a chore like washing the dishes, or as my Amazonian teacher showed me when we were in the Maloka down in the jungle, he would spend every morning sweeping, which is quite a task in the jungle. And I asked him, like, why did he pay so much attention to it? And he gave me the answer. He said, well, sometimes if there's too much dirt collects in the corners, that's where the bad energy starts to accumulate, which I understood to be a truth. But also at the same time, I realized after some time that he used it as his meditation time, where he would center himself and he would go into his space. And having done this practice myself quite a bit with washing dishes and cleaning the floor, if you bring yourself present, it can be an enjoyable process, because then you realize you want your house to be clean. You don't want those dirty corners where the cobwebs and the dead wood lice and all of those things collect, because that's also not a nice energy. And so the more that you bring yourself into that place of, hey, why would I not clean my house, or want to eat off clean dishes or have a clean kitchen, the more you come into that place of joy and abundance and love, because you're loving yourself enough to create a clean environment to exist in. So I think that everything can be flipped in that way. Nothing really has to be a chore. But I do want to come back to something, Kelley, because we did a nice little piece there on the new moon about the Earth trine. So now I just want to clarify again, just to bring it to a place of conclusion on this. So we have Mercury in Virgo, we have Uranus in Taurus, and we still have Pluto in Capricorn. So the emphasis has changed here from the energy of Venus that we had before to Mercury. So how do we see that little shift there? Is it more about communication, more about communicating precisely with ingenuity and mastery? Or how do you see that, Kelley, as a sort of a sum up of that triangle with those placements?
Well, if Venus rules Libra, for one thing. Anyway, what I want to say is I still think the Venus retrograde hasn't completed her circle yet. Mercury's come in to really like help us rework our lives and ground our lives based on this Venus heart energy, the heart and soul connection. I'm starting to think that the black moon has a lot to do with the soul. So that energy has come together more beautifully than maybe we've experienced. And there's this beautiful Virgo, the skill set of Mercury in Virgo, and one of the true black moon is in Virgo now. And this is like really, really tuning into what you've said as precision, the fine tuning, the tweaking, this is, just the best of the best sort of energy in terms of rearranging our priorities and tuning into nature. Let's just say it that way. Nature is a great teacher right now, and there are going to be phenomenon, I think, that come up and it's like, wow, we're learning from this. Nature is telling us something. I think we're really going to get a lot of that, the information coming from the earth in whatever way it will touch our hearts.
Right. So I'm also thinking, because this is the full moon from the new moon, whatever those plans, prayers, intentions that we put out on this new moon that's coming up, then by the time we get to the full moon, it seems like we're going to be able to communicate them better with the world around us.
Yes, yes, that Mercury retrograde is pretty much practically right on the new moon point. Yes, I see what you're getting at here. Yeah. And also we're going to be thinking a little straighter, hopefully. But, we do have the Neptune opposition to contend with. Right. So this is keeping not only your emotional energy on a high, level, but also, watching your words, and don't be a downer, watch and edit yourself with your words now. It's word crafting, because the word is made flesh, sort of thing. So we've got to absolutely fine tune our words.
I definitely prefer fine tuning to editing, because for many of us, editing ourselves is something perhaps that we've been doing a lot of our lives, and maybe not so beneficial, because it means that we've not truly been ourselves. And one of the things we've been realizing on our recent journeys at QPH is that when we remove the masks that we have adopted or worn, the facades to fit in with family, work, society, if we remove those masks that are not really us, it can be a little disconcerting to find that we're not really sure who we are anymore, because we've been wearing these masks for so long that we've assumed them as our identity. And often our identities have a wound behind them. I've said this before, but it's become more and more, I think, apparent that many of us over our lives even have been wearing our identities as the wounds that we picked up. And if we don't have any wounds anymore, because we're becoming more 5D, then who the hell are we? And I think that that's a big part of this journey, that we should all be contemplating, that if I'm not living through my wounds, my victimhood, or life is so bad because this happened and this happened, and actually if we're flipping that and saying, hey, thank you very much, these amazingly challenging things happened to me, but boy, did I get to grow through those experiences, then I think
we want to be our true self. We want to be our true selves, and that that takes a little editing to not be down on ourselves, because we often talk down to ourselves, like, oh, you made a mess, or you didn't do that right, or we're self-criticizing so often. Don't go there. That's what you want to edit out. And just talking about editing out.
Let's say adapting, maybe, rather than editing, maybe fine-tuning is better, so that we can still be ourselves without having to change our personalities, but we can be most appropriate.
Well, I'm a writer. I edit. I look for the best word. You want the best word. Yeah. And talking about editing, just totally ignore this black line right here.
Okay, I had. Don't worry. I didn't understand it, so I
Okay,
wasn't
I'm
gonna
just
bring it up.
talking to the listeners, like, what is that? It's not pointing to anything, and it's a holdover from the new
Yeah.
moon slide. So
So look,
anyway,
as we come into the final few moments, let's take the screen down, Kelley, because I'm aware that we've gone over our hour a little bit. And let's bring what I think is a very, very potent couple of weeks into a place of clarity and conclusion. So how would you like to sum up this look at this month's lunar cycles, Kelley?
I think it's like the sweeping metaphor you were giving. You know, we're cleaning, we're heart, like what gives us joy. Let's sweep out the door, whatever doesn't. Let's fine tune how we're living our lives on a daily basis, and don't ignore anything that you're doing. And we have all these retrograde planets that are saying, look back, you know, this is how you were doing it then, but that wasn't working anyway, so let's do it differently. So there's so many ways in which we're still reviewing, and we're looking back at what actually has been going on, because the fast pace has been like, we forget what just happened like 2 weeks ago or 2 months ago or last year, you know, and that's going back way far, isn't it? So yeah, maybe time is that is that fifth element, and use it well, and you know, just feel how you're tuning into the rhythms and find your own natural rhythms, you know. So that we're making new lives, we're experimenting, you know, we have perfect permission because the bridge is burned behind us. So how do we want to be living now and make it good? You know, this is the creating from the heart. So love leads the way, and it's the only truth.
Wonderful. I love that, Kelley. Thank you for that wonderful summing up. And I completely concur. You know, this is a time to be creative, but with new impulses, new technology coming from the earth or the elementals. Let's just call it elemental technology. That could be an interesting way of looking at it too. And I think that it's really important that every moment matters. Hashtag time is art, I think is a great phrase too. You know, how do we use our time to create art? And art doesn't have to be like the wonderful pictures on the walls in our houses. We are a piece of art. Are we folding ourselves as a piece of art? And if so, how are we decorating ourselves? How are we editing or fine-tuning ourselves into a more beautiful aspect of ourselves, and leaving behind the belief systems, the burdens, the things that are weighing us down and maybe make us feel a little ugly on the inside, the things that are not our true radiating shiny selves. So I think that this is a wonderful time to step into that Celestia aspect of the sparkles that are within us all, and to radiate those out and to work with these wonderful energies of the new moon. Please, everybody, make your prayers super strong in this new moon. This is a time when we need humanity to start stepping up for themselves as individuals.
That Lilith flash, be as specific as you can about what seeds you are planting and what you want to harvest at the end of this moon cycle.
And most importantly, when you check in with yourself, make sure that your prayers are in alignment with yourself and not something totally unrealistic that somehow is like a wish that really is just something frivolous. Tune into yourself and ask yourself, what do I really want and what do I really need? And if those two things come into a black moon Lilith alignment, we should find that what we want and what we need actually can be the same thing, which is super economical, super Virgo, super precise. And all of those other wonderful energies that we've talked about. So thank you again, Kelley. Please, everybody, do check out Kelley's website. Please do check out her Substack, where she, I know, is putting lots of new content. Please also check out quantumplانthealing.com. We just finished a wonderful journey, which me and Kelley did a wonderful piece looking at goddesses in astrology. That was called The Return of the Goddess, which is really about all the things we've been talking about today. How do we become more fulfilled? How do we fill the vacuum once we've removed the mask? And how do we invite the goddess, which is very, very present for us in Mother Earth, back into our lives by working with some of these energies like Teharonhia and Wako, you know, or Humeo, and many of these other wonderful goddess energies. So please do check that out. And we'll look forward to seeing you for next month's show in, I guess, 3 or 4 weeks from now. So take it easy, everybody. Enjoy the new moon and keep it fun, keep it light, and most of all, keep it empty. See you all very soon. Ciao for now.